Okay, 323. Dati ano to eh, on the old curriculum, this is ARD 7, which is Architectural Design 7. So this is the 7th Architectural Design course that you will be having uh, for this sem. No? Okay, so I will also be your course facilitator for this one. Most of you, I'm familiar na, uh, especially sa CAD. Kasi parang, oh, most of you sa CAD, mga last names. Okay. And then, for Architectural Design 7, this will be of course, a semestral course. So all throughout the whole semester, of course, we will be also having our assessments or examinations. That will be a number of four, a total of four assessments or examinations. And for the Architectural Design 7 course, it will not be all the same with your other design courses. This will be divided into three practical examination or assessments, or your major plates. You have three major plates, and one one assessment or examination will be a written exam. Okay. So if you have read or downloaded and read our course syllabus, you will know the different topics that we will be discussing for Design 7. No? So, the first part, which is yung okay, nasa backward LMS na. So, that is from weeks 1 to 5, okay, urban design elements. Week 6 to 9, that is the National Building Code of the Philippines, Rules 7 and 8. And then, the third quarter, weeks 10 to 14, that is for the urban revitalization. And lastly, for the final quarter, weeks 15 to 18, that is dedicated for community architecture. So let me just show you the, or i-share muna natin yung yung Blackboard yung sa course. Okay, share tab. Okay, this one. Okay. So let's just run down through all the contents. I'm sure you are very much familiar of this one, katong the course, of course, the different sections, course facilitator, the description. So let's just have yung unique na for this course. So the course description for this AR31 AR323 course is you will be having an in-depth urban design and uh, culminating design principles from previous architectural design majors with coherence to the, okay, emphasis on this one, your Rule 7 and 8 of the National Building Code of the Philippines, or your Presidential Decree 1096. Okay? So let me show of hands if use the raise hand icon. Have you already, or are you going through the subject na urban design, yung sa planning ninyo? Have you done that? Tapos na ba, or ongoing ba, or wala pa na take? Sige daw, raise hand icon if tapos na or ongoing yung urban design. Ongoing, okay. So at least I know na, kasi somehow that is very connected, ating ARD7 sa yung planning niyo na urban design. Okay, so most of you are ongoing or tapos na, or sino yung tapos na? Tapos na sa yun lang. Wala pa ba? Ongoing lahat. Tama ba? Sige. Oh. Kasi if there are siguro plates na pwede na to ma-connect regarding your with regards to your urban design plates. pwede na to siya i-connected to. Kasi they share the same principles or the same topics. No? And also, as what I've emphasized, okay, ito, coherence with the Rule 7 and 8 of the National Building Code of the Philippines. And with that, anong prof-prac na kayo? Anong professional practice course na kayo? One. Ano bang one? What is one? What are the topics sa prof-prac one? Hindi. You have an overview. Overview lang ata eh. Yes. So overview of the building laws, if I'm not mistaken. Overview of the building laws. So you have your fire code, you have your 957, you have your 1096. Ano pa ba? Ano siya? And then for Prof Prac 2, you have your SPP nata. May SPP na ba sa Prof Prac 1? Wala pa. Habot ang uban. Anong Prof Prac na kayo? Tapos na ba sa Prof Prac 1? Have you discussed already PD 1096 or the National Building Code of the Philippines? Wala pa, sir. Okay, wala pa ang abot ang others. So basically, si Prof Prac 1 kasi is just an overview of your building laws. 1096 pa lang, sir. Okay, PD 1096. Okay. But in Prof Prac 1, you are discussing PD 1096, but it's just an overview of the all sections, yung 21 sections of the PD 1096. But on this course, ating course, AR 323, Design 7, we will have an in-depth na discussion regarding yung sa dalawang yung dalawang rules, which is the rules 7 and 8 of the National Building Code. Okay? And then with that, you will be applying what you have learned yung sa rule 7 and 8. It will be an application to your other major plates. So you will be applying those principles on the rule 7 and 8. Siya. Okay? Sige. Okay, ganito. May I request everyone, no? At least karon lang, no? Para I'll be also familiar with your faces. So, can I request na mag-on tayo ng, at least camera lang, no? Unmute lang tayo. So, I'll also be familiar with your faces as well. So, para pag face-to-face, di po ko makuratan no na kanide estudyante na ako or under sa akong class natin. Okay? Sir, magbili pa po ako ng camera for PC. Sige. So, for others, at least, you know. Okay, thank you kay Mabineta, okay, nag-open camera. Vienna, okay, thank you. Ruby, Tara, thank you. John Lloyd, okay, Irvin, Vincent, okay, thank you. Sige siya. Thank you. Okay, so let's continue. So, yun, that is our course description. So, from the coverage, if you have already yung course syllabus natin, nakita niyo, on the first quarter of our course, it will be all about urban design elements. Okay, urban design elements. And the activities natin, yung dalawa lang, but we also have yung first major plate ninyo. Okay? So I will be discussing that later on. So for the urban elements, that will be the first quarter, and then on the second quarter of our course, it will be all about the rules 7 and 8. Okay? So prepare calculators as well and your sketch papers because we will be solving on that part. No, it will be technical on that part, basing on the PD 1096 or the National Building Code of the Philippines. So not only are we sige lang tag drawing, no? Kanang ginaingon nila na uban na ay RT drawing naman na. So dili ta makaingon na we are not just purely drawing, but we are technical people. No? So we will be talking about development controls, the different development controls on the as discussed on the Rule 7 and 8. And as of now, as early as now, please prepare a hard copy, no, printed copy of your Rule 7 and 8. I will also be requiring you that one before our second assessment or second examination, because for our second assessment or second examination, that is the only examination na written. Okay, that's written. Okay, so secure a copy of your Rule 7 and 8 and invest na daan sa copy na no, because on your 5th year, on your ARC 500 na yung parang yung competency natin, parang exit exam or ano ba yan siya, mock board natin, you will also still be using that one. So invest in that copy. Dili lang na gamiton ninyo karon lang na course, but you will still be using that one before kayo mag-graduate, no, in your 5th year. So gamit na siya. So invest in that copy. Okay. What else? So yun siya, that is on the second quarter natin. And then moving on to the third quarter, we will have your second major plate, which will be an urban renewal or urban revitalization, wherein you will be choosing a specific neighborhood and you are to identify its problems, no? Problems on that specific community or neighborhood nga, no? And you are to propose a solution for those problems that you have identified. Okay. Then lastly, community architecture. Maybe I could have your final major plate, yung major plate number 3 ninyo, in a it's a mix of a cohabitation livable area, and then a mix of a concept of live, work, and play na concept. So yun siya. That will be on your final major plate. And we will be discussing the guidelines of that later on. Okay? Sige. So, course syllabus. I'm sure you already know the online code of conduct. Let's not go through that. Itong LIC, LIC or the Learning Information Center. This is new. This is as per the admin, nila. So if you want different resources, or dati we borrow books from the library, di ba, physical. But for now, but as of now, we have different options on how to gather different references from our LIC. So you just check this out, itong section na to. Okay. And then what's next? After LIC. Okay. So for the calendar, school calendar, of course, since this is a semestral na course. So we will be having our examinations, yung apat, on the even numbered examination. So for, again, our first exam will be on the second examination of the term, which is on February 11. But since our schedule ng first day ng class for the second semester was moved a week, so it will also be moved siguro a week then, no? So for the first assessment natin, that will be due on a week after yung February 11, which will be February 18. Okay. So yun siya. Okay. And then for our second assessment, which is yung written natin, will be on the finals of the first term. And that will be March 10 to 11, or move again 1 week. So pala siya. March 18. Okay, so 1 month lang kanila pagitan. And then for the third examination or assessment, that will be on the second examination of the second term, which will be on April 22. And for the finals naman natin, that will be on May 20. Okay? So check your calendar. So I posted the calendar here for siya. Okay. A few corrections lang on this one. So move lang ng date ng 1 week. Okay. So this one, on this section, you are to, this is our sim. Although I did not author this one, but still, you have here the references, no? Yung mga basic, mga terms, and also different topics. So you can just study that one, no? For your self-directed learning. Okay. Sige. So yun. On this section also, divided na ang ating different quarters of our course. So yun, as what I've said, urban design course, urban design elements for the first quarter, and BCP Rule 7 and 8 for the second, urban revitalization or renewal on the third, and for the final, it will be a community architecture. So for this one, let's concentrate on the first quarter, which will be weeks 1 to 5. So on this topic, we are to discuss the basics of urban design concepts, including history and current trends. We will be having design exercises, and we will be applying those concepts in our plates and projects. So, question again, naka-planning 1 na ba? Basic or the basic principles of planning. Are you familiar with Ebenezer Howard? Familiar with Kevin Lynch? Familiar na ba? Dili pa. Not yet. Principles of planning. Are you taking principles of planning right now? Planning 1? Okay, yes. Sige, so mas maganda kasi sana if you are familiar na with those concepts ni Kevin Lynch, yung 5 elements of the city. Okay, sige lang. At least, second term pa. Sige, second term pa. See, if you want, then you can just advance study and check those, sige lang. We'll discuss that one later na lang. Ano pa ba ang need? So, if you notice, ang ato ang course in Design 7, is the major course ito. So it's a combination of those minor course na inyo no na inyong gina-take. So Prof Prac, building laws, yung planning one, and your urban design. So it's a mix. Okay. So for this one, you have two different activities. I've already posted this one last week. The first one is an urban design elements of a city presentation. Meron nang nag-submit na dalawa but I've checked your work and uh, tawag nito, please resubmit. I will be showing an example later on and you can have that as a guide for your presentation for your submission. Okay, and I'm hoping that everyone has already chosen their city. So for this activity, the first activity for our urban design elements na topic, so you will be choosing a city, not only just a city, but a city from a developing country. Why a develop pala, not a developing, no? Developed country. So why do we need, the purpose of this exercise is the first exercise na to, itong activity na to, itong urban design elements of a city. The point of this one is you are to examine or you are to study what principles or what strategies, urban design strategies were applied on those cities na napili ninyo. And from that, we can learn no those strategies and we can examine and what are those strategies na pwede nating apply on our cities here in the Philippines because we are still a developing country and we can take or we can learn from developed countries na mga strategies nila but we should also be careful on those strategies na i-apply natin. Not all the strategies na good sa kanila or nag-prosper sa kanila are adaptable in our situation. So uh, interconnected yung dalawang activities natin. The second one being the postcards from the future, wherein you will be uh, selecting or applying those strategies from this first activity and applying it through perspective. Yun yung magiging output ninyo on the second activity. Okay? So I've also checked the chosen cities that you have posted doon sa forum and a few were selected cities in the Philippines. So I suggest na you can re-select and have cities that is coming from a developed country or developed na city na talaga siya. Some also are, ang specify lang is a country, have a specific city. Kasi if you are to discuss or you are to present a country, medyo dako-dako yung presentation. So, city lang muna tayo. One city. Okay? So, for this activity, na if you're to choose a city, and then you are to identify or you're to discuss research about it, and you will be parang dissecting it or research about its different urban design elements. No? So for the urban design elements, we have 5. And I hope na you have research already. So what are those 5 elements? Anyone? Yung sa naka-research na? If you have an idea. The first one, you have your can you name the 5 design elements? Paths, nodes. Okay, itong si paths and nodes, you are thinking of yung kay Kevin Lynch. Okay, kay Kevin Lynch. Elements of a city. So yung urban design elements, we will be concentrating on yung sa buildings. You have your buildings, your excuse me. You have your buildings, your public spaces, your streets, your transport, and your landscape. So yun siya. Okay, again, your buildings, your public spaces, your landscapes, your streets, and your transport. Yun siya. Yung si paths, nodes, edges, and tawag nito, districts, landmarks, kay Kevin Lynch yun siya. Kay Kevin Lynch na 5 elements of city. So we are talking here about the urban design elements. Okay? So yun siya. So again, ayun, tama. Yung one zone. Buildings, public spaces, streets, transport, and landscape. So for this one, with those 5 elements, for example, you have a city. No? So you are to identify what are the notable buildings on that specific cities, what is its relation on how it became developed na city or prosperous na city. So you are to, not all the buildings naman ang inyong i-present, of course, a notable lang and yung which has a great value to the development of that city. Okay? Then for public spaces also, you discuss, you choose those different public spaces and then you discuss how it was developed and how it helped the development of that particular city. For the streets, notable streets, of course, same with the transportation and landscape. For the transportation, you can enumerate different modes of transportation that are present in that city. Okay? So say for example, you have your bus, you have your bus network, you have your transit, your ano pa ba? Airport, of course, your waterways, pwede rin siya. Different modes of transportation. Diba? Kasi for in our country, diba, for transportation, medyo limited tayo on the modes of transportation natin. For example, sa Davao, ano ba? We have our jeepneys. Ngayon, on the local transportation, they are at least may improvement, meron ng buses. No? Okay. But we don't have transit, wala tayong railways, di ba? Okay, yun, medyo limited lang siya. Okay. And then for the landscape naman, of all, the same with the other elements, you are to choose the notable landscapes. Okay. So I'll be presenting later an example, which is the city of New York. Okay. So that is for our first activity. So make sure again, yung city ninyo is unique. At least no cities are alike. So we have a number of different cities na from a developed country. So you can just choose from those. Okay. Okay, this is part of our major plate number 1. But as for now, siguro, you can just download this and at least you have a copy of this already. This is the zoning map of Davao City. If you want, I provided this one. So ito Davao City lang, but if you want to know the zoning map of your city or in your different location, municipality, baronsa, then you could just check those websites nila ng inyong LGU or your local government unit and you can search for those zoning maps. And it can be under the CLUP or your comprehensive land use plan that should be provided by your local government unit or your LGU. So you can just check that out. So mag-discuss ako nito siguro once I introduce na yung major break number 1 natin. Okay. But for now, download it and just siguro study lang. At least prepared tayo. And then, yun nga, sabi ko, as what I've said, connected ang ating first and second activity. So from your first activity, the second activity is yung postcards from the future. So medyo medyo weird kasi postcard from the future. So ikan sa wala pa di ba? Wala pa in the future. So this one, you will be making a perspective, envisioning what are the what would be the image na inyuhang ma-envision when you will be applying different urban design strategies in the specific city or the community that you are in. Okay? So this one, it's an application of what you have learned or what you have gathered on the previous activity, yung activity number 1. So from that strategy, let's say, for example, ang nakuha niyo kay New York is meron silang different, daghan sila mode of transport. So that became a means or a way for them to progress even further or mas faster, di ba? So, for example, you are in Jensen. Si Jensen, wala siyang formal transportation. Ang ano lang sa kanya is, formal public transportation. Sa kanya is tricycles lang, di ba? Rarely na kay jeep, but that is still not a formal mode of transportation. Okay? So as per as per Department of Transportation, no? So you can envision Jensen as having different modes of transportation like transit railways, you have your buses, you have your monorails, cable cars if pwede. You have your may river ba sa Jensen na nag-cross sa city? Medyo wala na. Okay. Pwede rin kung if you want, kung saan nyo gusto banda i-point out yung niya. So you can have those different envision i-contain nyo siya in one perspective. So parang that will be your vision in your different community. If you want, any place in Mindanao, okay, not necessarily kung asa ka naka-locate, no? Or kung asa ka naka-reside. Okay. So, siya. Okay, and then if you are familiar, di ba, yung sa mga, for example, places, basta may mga postcards, yung parang isang picture lang, tapos sa likod na postcard. So, di ba picturesque man siya tanawon. So, it's the same output ang ato ang gina-achieve din na activity. Okay, so yan siya, postcard from the future, envisioning your a city in the Philippines or yung place in the Philippines with the application of different urban design strategies. Okay, so for this activity, you are required to have your drawing requirement, one drawing requirement and a paper requirement. Okay, so for this one, you are to have a drawing requirement that is manually rendered na perspective. So that will be the main postcard ninyo. And it is on the size of an 80 size paper. Excuse me. Okay, A3 size paper. Sorry. And then any medium, watercolor, or ano bang mas preferred ninyo? Mixed. Medium can also be okay as long as it is manually rendered na perspective. Okay? Then as much as possible, take into consideration the current conditions of your city. Apply design strategies from your presented city. And tama pala, nakalimutan ko mag-require. I will also be requiring on this part a photo ng current condition. Okay? Photo ng current condition. And then afterwards, that will be the basis of your perspective, and the output would be connected onto that one. Okay? I'll again show a sample later on. After I'll show the sample of the first activity. Okay, then the second requirement is a paper requirement. That is, you are to make a narrative design brief of your rendered perspective. It should be an A4 size paper, single paper only. And then font size is 11 and font style is Arial narrow. Then not less than 500 words. So you are here to describe the different strategies that you have applied and what is the vision on your postcard. Yun siya. So descriptive narrative ng inyong postcard. Okay. So sige. Yun siya. So any question with regards to our activities before we move on sa examples? Any clarification? Okay, again, please adjust yung sa mga yung napili natin. Sige, if none, then I'll present yung ating example number. Yes, okay lang po. From internet yung okay lang if coming from the internet yung picture, as long as it is a current photo of the existing na condition ng lugar. Okay, so stop presenting and I'll share the okay. Sige, so yun. Makita na ba?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sige, so this sample output is an output from my previous students under Design 7 still, from ito sila Pangan and Salit. So they have chosen the city of New York as their chosen city na identifying the urban design elements. So New York City. So for you can have your different different na pagka-layout or pagkasunod-sunod ng inyong presentation, depende na. But for them, they first had an introduction regarding the different urban design elements. So yung 5. Okay? So this is just an introduction. What is urban design? So description of the urban design. This is concerning with the arrangement, the appearance, and the function of our suburbs or suburbans, towns, and our cities. So if you are confused regarding urban design and urban planning, meron silang difference, no? When we talk about urban design, it's not equated to urban planning. Urban design, as per the description, is the arrangement, appearance, and the function of the suburbs. While the urban planning is mainly on the uh, uh, making of the guidelines, having tawag ito, um, tawag din, regulations, no? Regulations, mga resolutions, no? Parang interconnected with the law, no? Principles, and si urban design medyo aesthetic but with function, no? Kung what we see on the on the appearance of the city. Okay? So yun nga, that's why yung elements niya is yung mga buildings, mga landscapes, public spaces. Okay? For urban planning naman, let's say ang output niya would be uh, bawal ang on that specific zone or land area, bawal ang magtinda, or bawal ang commercial spaces, or bawal ang industrial. So parang ano siya, law siya, no? Or tawag yan, regulation siya, no? Yun yung difference ng urban design and urban planning. Okay? So, yun siya. So another is that urban design also involves the design and coordination of all that makes up cities and towns. So still, you have different stakeholders on of course on a city. Maraming stakeholders wherein entities are concerned with that specific na development. So you have your mayor, your of course mga pedestrians, tao. We are all involved in that one also. Then it is a both process and an outcome of creating localities in which people live, engage with each other, and engage with the physical place around them. Okay. So that is urban design. So for urban design, from that, they transition to the history first of their chosen city. And before they enumerated yung urban design elements. So for this one, since they chose New York City as per the history of New York, this is historically, uh, it is named as New Amsterdam, but later on it was New York City. So also it was called as also known as the Big Apple, and is a city and port located at the mouth of the Hudson River. So if you notice in New York, in between siya ng dalawang river, and one of those rivers is the Hudson River. If you're familiar with uh, Captain, yung plane movie na, no? Captain Phillips, no? Dito nagland ang ilang aircraft sa Hudson River. So the city is the largest and most influential American metropolis. So yung Wall Street nandyan, di ba? Center of economic development nila or activity nila ng Amerika. So that's why it's the most influential American metropolis. New York City is in reality a collection of many neighborhoods scattered among the 5 boroughs: the Manhattan, the Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, Spider-Man, and then Staten Island. No? So if you notice also, or familiar, di ba? Yung this one, majority nito is kita na to sa movies, American movies. So those are the 5 boroughs of New York. And then since the 17th century, when it was founded as the Dutch trading post, New York has been a center of trade and one of the main gateways for immigration to the United States. Okay, so this is New York in 1850. Okay, and then this is the Chrysler Building. So being the capital of finance and law in the US, New York is the center for creative industries such as fashion, design, art, and advertising. And then now it draws 63 million visitors each year. The culture is ingrained in the communities across all 5 boroughs of New York. Then manufacturing first became a major economic base for New York in the mid 19th century. So if you notice naman sa all of the developing countries or the mga developed na cities naman, it started out as a manufacturing na na city wherein maraming mga factories na nandoon. But since nag, throughout time nag-evolve and hindi na masyadong uh, kailangan ng mga maraming factories. So those factories dati medyo naging wala nang masyadong tao na nagana. So it became as what we called as brownfield, technically brownfield. No? You will learn that on your urban design or urban planning. Na, no? So we have the term what we call brownfield or greenfield. For brownfield, it is a place or an area of the city wherein dati it's a manufacturer factory na center ng mga activities. Then later on, since wala nang masyadong activity na ganun, then medyo nabaran siya or wala na masyadong tao doon. So the activity on that place is much less than before. So in order to rejuvenate it, they have created different developments such as revitalization or renewal in order to boost its economic value or factor on that brownfield. So it can become as a greenfield. Okay, but again, you will learn that on your planning. So for New York, history is still a center for many service sector industries in the U.S. with more Fortune 500 companies headquartered in the city of New York. This is an important center for the journalism, like your American mass media, and also mga publishings. In the 21st century, New York has kept its place as one of the world's leading cities. Its economic power, openness to ideas and immigrants, and world-class cultural assets remain a potent combination. Then for the last 2 centuries, New York has been the largest and wealthiest American city. So you have here your Wall Street, yung of course center of economic nila, di ba? Yung for their New York Stock Exchange that is present on that specific area. Okay, and then New York surpassed such status, became a world city in both commerce and in outlook. In this photo, you have here your Central Park. Okay, your Central Park. Okay, so yun. They started with the history of a little bit of history of New York, and then from there, they now transitioned into the 5 elements of the cities, of the 5 urban design elements of a city. So first element is the building. For the building, okay, these are the most pronounced element of the urban design, and they shape and articulate space by forming the street walls of the city. Also, buildings are the single most, yung pinaka simple na simple single entity of the city. And then well-designed buildings and groups of buildings work together to create a sense of place. Itong sense of place na to, this is also important. So I'm sure it will also be discussed in your planning courses. Okay? In order for us to have a good development or proposed na development, we should definitely consider having a sense of place. Kasi if your occupant doesn't have that sense of place in your development, medyo awkward and dili siya parang livable or occupiable, no? Ang inyong development. So first one is okay, still so we can just move on. So there are many iconic buildings in New York. Wait, sorry. Okay, so there are many iconic buildings in New York. So uh, medyo there are, since maraming iconic buildings, medyo mahirap magpili ng konti lang, no? So the first one, New York is the leading city where it has a number of different skyscrapers. The birth of skyscrapers was originally in Chicago, but nag-follow lang si New York. But as time goes by, mas daghan ang pag-build sa New York than in Chicago. Although the birthplace of what we call so-called skyscrapers was in Chicago, but the number or mas daghan na skyscrapers was in New York City. Okay. So early skyscrapers for New York. You have here the different historical pictures. No? Aerial view for the Lower Manhattan. You have this one also is a panorama shot of New York, 1906. So from historical. And then you also have the Brooklyn Bridge, but that's part of siya. So the first skyscraper you feature nila would be the Woolworth Building, which was constructed in 1913 and standing at the height of 241 meters. And it is the tallest building both in shot and in New York at the same time. So ito. So race for the skyscrapers dati, hindi pa masyadong marami ang kanilang skyscrapers. But with the emergence of those skyscrapers, they found out problems regarding their sa pag-develop nila. So since marami na ang mga skyscrapers, yung mga areas, land areas na hindi siya mataas, they have problems regarding with their light, natural light or lighting and ventilation. So ang uban na areas, all throughout the day, dulom siya. Wala siya natural light na mga kasi it is ang shadow that is casted by those different buildings, tall buildings, makast sa ilaha. So wala siyang natural light all throughout the day. And with the ventilation naman, since mataas yung other buildings nila, ang ventilation or yung hangin na padulong unta sa uban na mga areas will be obstructed by those tall buildings. So not much ventilation and air can pass through those certain areas as well. This is also connected sa ato ang second quarter yung sa rule 8 natin, which is light and ventilation. But later na yun siya. Okay, so another history. So medyo mataas to siya na presentation. So I'll just go through. No? So from 1925, 1930, then you have here the Chrysler Building. So si Chrysler Building is a really iconic building, no? And one of my favorite buildings siguro kasi Art Deco style siya, and it has really a unique, and alam na alam mo yung feature ng Chrysler. No? So Chrysler Building had an ace up its sleeve, and with the installation of the famous needle, yung nasa taas, it took the crown as the king of skyscrapers in the 1930s or between those period. Okay, next is the Empire State Building. Of course, this is very famous. If kung asa or asa ni Saka si ano, di ba? King Kong. Sa Chrysler ba siya o sa Empire? Empire ata, di ba? Okay, Empire State Building. So, advance yan. So, information regarding Chrysler Building. And then, Empire State naman. So, for Empire State, this is siya completed at a height of 1,250 feet or 380 meters in 1932. Empire State Building remained as the world's tallest building until the topping of the original World Trade Center, katong nabombahan ng World Trade Center in 1970. Yan siya. Okay, next, World Trade Center, the Twin Towers. Okay, 1965 to 1974. So, if very much familiar ni siya, no? It's because of the event that transpired that was yung sa 9/11. Diba? Okay. February 9/11, So this is the aerial view of the Lower Manhattan Financial District, looking southeast, showing the definitive site for the new World Trade Center. This is in October 1962. So construction began in April 1969 and it was completed on July 1974. So this is the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. Okay. Okay, Empire State. So, then Chrysler Building. Okay, si One World Trade Center naman, this is different from yung different from yung dalawang Twin Towers natin for the World Trade Center. This was built after the destruction of those two buildings. So malapit siya sa ground zero kung saan yung original World Trade Center. Okay, designed by SOM or Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, which were also the designers of Burj Khalifa and Willis Tower. Okay, this one is yung World Trade Center, and this shows this shows the event or yung kung saan kung asa niagi tong plane, asa gihit sa plane tong two towers nito. And you have your landing gears nila kung asa sila ang ilahang ang aeroplano. So after the destruction of that one, kani siya na place, igihimo na siya ground zero. Ang naano lang dira karon is parang water feature or parang memorial na siya. Diba? It's a memorial. Then this is the World Trade Center, and this is the One World Trade Center. Other notable buildings is the Flatiron Building, which was designed by Daniel Burnham. It has a Beaux Art style. Okay. So Fuller Building, or the Flatiron Building, as it is betterly known. Yan siya. Manipis, triangular. Pretty much familiar siguro kayo, of course, because of your history in architecture. So let's not go through that. Other notable buildings is the San Remo building and yeah. So those are the different notable buildings of New York. And for public spaces naman, okay, second element in our urban design element. Okay, for public spaces, great public spaces are equated to as the living room of the city. So public spaces make the high quality of life in the city possible, because in these public spaces, this is the area wherein we socialize. So it is a need for a city. Diba? A living room is where we socialize, where we entertain guests, diba? Usually. So in analogy as well, public spaces are the gathering areas. Okay. Where we socialize. Public spaces ranges from Grand Central Plaza, plazas and squares, up to the small or local neighborhood parks. Then many are great turnaround stories, places that have come all the way back from the brink of abandonment. New York's great public spaces become the forum of the residents to connect to each other and the city they call home. Okay? And connect, di ba? Socialize. Okay. So first, we have William H. White. He is a notable uh, person for public spaces. It's because he's not an architect, but he's a social scientist who helped New York City Planning Commission to draft a plan for the public spaces in the city. Yan siya. So he is part of the one na nag na sabi yan, nag-advocate for the public spaces, no? Dapat prominent ang kanilang public spaces. He was also known for his work in planning new city spaces. So his notable works is in Herald Square in New York City. No? So this one, okay, this is the Herald Square. So if you notice, daghan kay tao nagagisiya, and most of the streets kasi, or most of the sidewalks, it became as a social gathering nila or a public space nila. And then also, this is okay, remarkable before and after photos shown in the public transformation over the years, but still remained yung kanilang less lang kanilang difference of this photo. Siguro sa vegetation lang. But still you have your stoop. Stoops also are naging parang common or public space din nila. So people in this area sa stoop naga-gather po, naga-talk, socialize, and connect. Of course, notable public space of New York is the Times Square. So this is the previous or before. And then the Times Square, dati street siya or it is passed by cars, but now present on the Times Squares are performers, napoy tables, as what you can see, uh, food as well. No? Okay. Then you also have the 16 card. The other public spaces is the Washington Square. This one. So you have remained on art. And another one is in Union Square. Okay, this one, itong public space na to is a very interesting one. Ay, hindi pa pala to. Okay, later nyo. So Rockefeller Center, another public space. So located in the Midtown Manhattan, Rockefeller Center was conceived during a time of economic prosperity, okay, because of the Rockefellers, John D. Rockefeller. And this is the Rockefeller Center. Another public space if you have uh, your Met, the largest art museum in the United States. That is another public space. And then you have your Times Square, which was also na kanina. Not included in this list is you have yung yung railway, dati siyang railway that become a public space. Nawala na siyang railway dati. I forgot na. Let me check kanina. New York. Okay, the High Line. Okay. High Line. Okay. You can search that. Interesting ang kanyang story. Actually, HI. The High Line. So, yung High Line, dati siyang daanan ng tren for the mga factories, etc. But since wala nang mga nag-decline nga yung mga manufacturing. So wala na siya, wala nang train, and then they opted to have it destroyed yung railway na mismong railway, but then they created a genius idea na to make it as a public space. No? So it became a public space wherein na nagibuhatan nila routes, paths, and also nagtanom sila mga landscapes or plants, etc. So it is now an attraction as well, a major public space in New York. Okay. So next is the third element, streets. So for streets, these are the connection between spaces and places, as well as being spaces themselves. The goal of the street is, as an urban design element, is to create pedestrian destination, improve walkability, improve access to transit, enhance vehicular and pedestrian safety, and then to support local development and build community partnerships. So those are the purpose of the streets. So for the streets of New York, you have here, you have many different notable streets. If you notice, in New York is in a grid pattern or grid iron pattern. Grid iron. Yeah. So, lapos-lapos lang. Hindi wala siyang dead end on the pattern of the streets. So, notable streets in New York includes the Broadway Street. You also have the Fifth Avenue. You also have your Wall Street, of course, financial capital of the nation. So, yun siya. 1, 2. Okay. Then next, for the transportation, New York has a different modes of transportation. So from ferry services, siya. Example is the Juliana. Then you also have the railroad, first railroad system. Then you also have above ground, the first elevated railway. Then you have also have your new station like the Grand Central Depot, street transit, your first subway station, subway system. You also have your buses. Then you also have your this one unique sa kanila dati, your bye-bye battery. This is slow-moving battery taxis that are replaced with faster gas-powered vehicles, wherein nasa front yung yung passenger. The driver is at the back, nasa taas. So red light, green light, pili sa New York City installs its first traffic signal light at the 5th Avenue and the 42nd Street. And of course, you have your air transport or your air travel. The first is the Bennett Airport. You also have your taxi medallions, the famous yellow cabs. Okay, so famous yellow cabs. Rail, then commuter rail. Okay, then you also have, of course, bike lanes, bicycles. Meron ding Roosevelt tramways, then cable cars. Then lastly, for the fifth element, you have landscapes. So landscape is the green part of the city that weaves throughout in the form of urban parks, street trees, plants, flowers, and water in many forms. Of course, the most notable uh, landscape in New York is the Central Park. So other than Central Park, you have the Bowling Green. Okay. And this is the Central Park. Yeah. Okay, so Statue of Liberty na island. Okay, Central Park. You also have your Washington Square, public space slash landscape. Okay. So those are the different urban design elements of the city of New York. So this one is yung sample output natin for the first activity. Okay. So if you could have an in-depth and connect it to the development of the city, then have that also ingrained in your presentation. Okay. And then ganito na lang. I will not, hindi na lang tayo mag-synchronous na reporting. I'll just be requiring you na lang to have a pre-recorded video of your presentation sa ano na lang, sa ating activity number 1. Okay? So so that yung time natin for the online class, you can have it for doing your other activities. Okay? So I can check, ako na lang mag-check, mag-play ng video. You can just share the link. Just make sure na accessible, ma-access ko so that I can check the video. Okay? Wala pa lang. Oh yes, individual presentation. Individual presentation. Okay. Any question for the activity number 1 before I go to the second activity sample, which I will still be locating. Sige, habang ko, habang nilolocate ko yung yung other sample. Yes. David, Navarrete. I-comment nyo na lang doon sa I-comment nyo na lang doon sa submission. Wag lang doon sa PDF na kasi para mas madali ko siya ma-access, comment lang. I will update the guidelines or yung requirement later on sa ating LMS, yung video presentation. Okay. Just disregard yung yung numbering ng major plate number. Okay. But for this is for the second activity natin. Okay. For the second activity, this is the postcards from the future. If you're familiar with this one, this is not my this is not my, I don't own these photos or renderings. Okay. So if you are familiar with this one, Asa man siya banda. These are all from Davao City. So kani siya is in Road, tama. Sa Wharf, di ba? Sa Wharf. This one is in yung rin. Oh, tama, sa Chinatown. And this one for sa Tuang, Sanggunian. Okay? So, why am I showing this one? Ito, parang kabaliktaran na nga to ang himuon. On this one, it envisioned a certain place as an abandoned area. So this is the ito yung kanyang rendered output. So sa wharf as an abandoned area, the Chinatown o Yonggorien as an abandoned area, and also the Sanggunian as an abandoned area. We will be doing the exact opposite, no? So you will be having a chosen photo of, say for example, the Agdao Public Market, and from this photo, you are to enhance, yung mag-render ka, parang overlay your rendered output. And the same angle, no? But better if dapat the same angle ng photo talaga. Para mas ma-appreciate niyo yung difference from parang before and after. Parang ito yung future of what will be Agdao on the next years to come. So you can choose different sceneries from wherever you are, or from whatever city in Mindanao you choose. This, for example, is in Simrecto. Simrecto in Ateneo and Marco Polo. Siya. So, yung drawing requirement natin, same lang pa rin. Manual render perspective, A3 yan siya. Huwag na lang yun. A3 size paper, any medium. So from there, say for example, this is your chosen photo ninyo, and then you introduce your different urban design strategies, and from there you come up with a vision or perspective for this particular location. Say for example, like this one. So parang near, no? You have a body of water here or a canal, and then you have your envisioned proposed development for this particular na location or area. Okay? So if you notice, you can identify by the description ninyo, no? Ibutanan lang niyo dito. So this area, nag-mix ang, for example, nag-mix na ang agianan sa tao o agianan sa vehicles. So there is no safety in when it comes to the segregation of those two. Diba? So I proposed na tanandari, or for example, tanandari is agianan lang siya sa tao. And then you just have your bicycle lane. Then you have your street lamps for security, and then yun, greeneries, etc. You can explain that one. So that is your rendered perspective. So you could also have kunwari meron ka ng rendered perspective, you can add other small details, or for example nakay key plans, or nakay different key details, architectural details, such as mag-introduce ka ng bioswale or whatever strategies you will be introducing, pwede rin. You can have that as a parang blow up sections or other details ng inyong development. Another example is this one. For example, itong street na to, merong island, merong another street on the other side. This is in Quezon Boulevard banda. This is the Torres right. So you can envision it as this one. It leads to a prominent building, and meron kang separate na for bus lanes, for pedestrians, and then you have an island that is having street lights, meron kang greens. Okay. And then ano pa ba? Yun, rendered yung you have your, pwede kang introduce ng bus stops, no? Segregated yung private to the public vehicles na use ng mga lanes. You can have that as well. Siya. Okay. So yun. Ano pa ba? So that will be an A3 sized paper. And then you have your narrative na explanation. So as much as possible, take into consideration the current conditions of the city and then apply the design strategies from your presented cities. Okay. So, okay, ito other examples, like example this one. Dati parang covered yung merong wall in between the sidewalks and the carriageway. So they have it gitanggal, and then they placed an alfresco dining area, which is for safety. Meron silang mga bollards dito. And then they have parallel parking for their cars. And so this space mas mas sociable and mas open siya na area rather than enclosed in walls. Then also this was sa baba nito is a waterway, and then you have your streets before and after photos. This one. Okay. So this one example din, for example, ito sa Davao, you have here yung sa flyover na to sa may unahan sa may Camellia banda, North Point. So meron ditong area which is parang barren area and not utilized area. Okay. Same as with siguro yung sa area next to this, yung ginawa din nilang skate park. No? You can have different developments as proposed pwede dito. So anong pwedeng ilagay? Pwede siyang garden ba or or pwede rin skate park na gusto rin niyo, no? Or any other envisioned na proposal. For example, this one under the bridge park, no? Meron siyang different activities, and you have meron siyang development dito wherein parang staggered or nakastack yung seating area. So a public space na siya rather than an unutilized space in our city. Okay. Okay, or you can also have this one under the bridge na development. So yun, that's the last requirement, yung paper requirement natin. Okay, so yun yung sinabi ko rin kanina, you can have this layout as well, no? You have your main perspective here. You can have minor or backup na mga perspective on different angles. So your main perspective will be the same angle as to your provided na na photo of the current condition. And then sa other perspective naman, different angles na lang. And then you can also have this one. You can have plans, you can have different details of your development. Okay. Actually, this is a better output, no? Or better layout. Pwede rin siyang i-adapt sa inyong output. Okay, so that is for our second activity, postcard from the future. Okay, any question? I hope nakuha yung point na activity, no? From studying or examining other urban design strategies from other developed cities, and then applying it to our very own cities. Pwede digital. Sige, allow na lang. Sige, allow digital. The thing is, much better kung mag-Photoshop na lang siguro. For example, ito. Okay. You can overlay or mag-layers ka na lang, di ba? Ng propose ninyo. Okay? So say for example, add ka ng seats. Okay. You just search for Photoshop na lang. Huwag na mag-sketch up. No? Mas madali siguro pag Photoshop na lang. Mag-layers ka na lang doon sa photo na nakuha niyo in the current situation. Okay? Sige, I'll allow digital. I'll also allow manual as well. If sige, you have the liberty to do it manual or digital output. Okay? Sige. Okay, any question? Further questions, guys?
Let you take a love for me. Don't need me, nothing that you don't praise me. Kind of girl you take me for.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the sample.
Wala, di ko na-commute. Sorry, sir.
Sige, okay. Pang bata na sa nabatay natay si Mr. President sa CSG natay coming activities for litmus tapos na ba litmus?
Tapos na, sir.
Tapos na litmus, sayang.
Sige lang, sir. Overqualified siguro, sir.
Next year na siguro.
Okay. Masig na pa gusto mag-sample dra. Pang tapat kayo, no?
Wala na, sir. Naulaw na sila sa kuha, sir.
Sige. Okay, thank you, Mr. Matila. Okay, see, other further questions? I hope clear ang instruction. Sige, ano pa ba? Okay. Sige, ang kulang ko na lang na i-discuss would be the first major plate. We will be discussing that next week na lang para di kayo mo overloaded. And the deadline for that one naman is on the second examination of the first term pa. So mga February 18, tama? So it will be parang zoning map. Okay, zoning map of yan. So that we'll have another meeting next week and we will discuss that. So for now, let's have these two activities muna. Okay. Any further questions? Then last agenda natin for this evening would be trying out the MS Teams. MS Teams. Okay, sige. So if you don't have any more questions, then let's try to have or test natin yung MS Teams natin. Kasi I'm also not familiar with this one. Windows